Hey, Giants fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to Talk is Cheap, the show where we discuss all things related to the New York Giants. Now, before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Giants and make sure to bookmark that to get the latest Giants news and analysis. Well, the Giants actually played a competitive game on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. However, it wound up being a record-setting loss when they fell 21-18, reportedly becoming the first team to score 3 touchdowns and not give up a touchdown, but yet still lose the game, which, for lack of better words, ouch. We'll get into that game in a preview for the next opponent, the Cleveland Browns, but to do that, we'll bring in Talk is Cheap co-host Ryan Novozinsky. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Chris, I'm surviving, man. That's all I'm doing. I'm surviving. It has been a pretty terrible start for Big Blue, as we just talked about off air. And I'm fine, but it's just a lot of bad football. As you mentioned, I mean, it was a close game this past week, but to go and have to score 3 touchdowns and hold your opponent to 0, but still lose the game, I don't think. I mean, it's never been done. And obviously, I was going to say I don't think I've ever seen that, but obviously, yeah, it's never been done, and that's why I haven't seen it. So. To answer your question, I'm good, but the Giants.
Yeah, it's crazy, and the more and more I find out more about this fan base and start reading more and experiencing it, I have an apology to make to you guys. Guys, I never knew it could be this bad, and I apologize to all you guys seeing new ways to event losing. You guys are very in enduring spirit up there in New York, when not only just for reporters, but also for the fans that watch this team. But let's get into this and dissect this thing. We're going to start off with our kickoff question. And it's funny because it involves a kicker when this first question I'm about to ask you. The game started off with Austin Eckler with a 98-yard touchdown that was called back because of a holding penalty. However, the entire game, the balance of the game wound up changing after Graham Gano was ruled out with a hamstring injury. And he wasn't 100% coming in. So knowing he wasn't 100% coming in, knowing what happened afterwards, Ryan, please help me this. Why the heck didn't the Giants have a backup plan for Graham Gano and his injured hamstring?
Chris, as soon as I saw this happen, touchdown or not, like you said, I got called back anyway. I was like, the Giants are not going to win this game. And then when you see Graham Gano in pain on the sidelines and in pain after the kick, listen. There was no way of knowing, because it kind of was like it kind of was, a fluke. It wasn't the groin, right? So it's a little different. But that he didn't have a backup on the roster after he was dealing with stuff before, it's malpractice. It is. I mean, heck, add a Jersey connection there too. I mean, their backup is from Rutgers, so why not? Yeah, this was one of those things where you see it, and just early on, that they're going to lose this game because of this terrible decision. My coworker Daryl wrote it. Our coworker Daryl wrote it. My B partner, I should say. This is the kind of decision that gets a coach fired. This lack of seeing, a couple steps ahead of you. The one thing about, and Daboll is a part of this Belichick tree. That he was an assistant all those years ago. But the one thing that they're supposed to have, and I know a lot of them haven't worked out, but they're supposed to have that foresight to, be however many moves ahead. It's like, they're playing 4D chess. This was complete lack of oversight to the point where I completely agree with Daryl. This is a decision that, yeah, it might seem like, okay, it's a kicker. Who cares? Like, the punter could be able to do it. No. In a game like this, where of course, it's a 3-point win too. This was complete malpractice. I can't stress that enough. This was a terrible, terrible decision. And it goes from Joe Shane down to Brian Daboll.
You would think, especially if a guy whose only job involves the legs and the hustle behind it, and if he's like, I don't feel any comfortable. It's week 2 of the season. You're not going to lose a season basically this early because of that. And when you look at the fact you didn't have a backup plan, that costs you not only when it comes to you have to go for 2 all the time, which after we saw that failed extra point attempt, I don't blame him for doing that. You had to go for 2 all the time. That can cost you field position, especially with this new dynamic kickoff. And you can't get guys to consistently do that there. You're right. You have to look at Joe Shane. You have to look at Brian Dable. And just from the moves, the decisions they made in this offseason, and you look into that first game, and then you look at this game now, the resume is Brian Dable trying to get fired? Is he's like, you know what? Put me on, Rich. I could use a vacation for a year off or whatever, and then go somewhere else. Like, I just don't understand some of this decision making he's made.
That Graham Gano was added to the injury report on Saturday for a groin injury, and I get it. It's a different thing. Hamstring is not your groin. That's fine. But the fact that there was even a concern there makes this decision all the more head scratching that they didn't have an extra guy. I mean, I still to this day I cannot believe it. I think this one will take a long time for me to kind of, I don't want to say recover from, because I don't really care either way. But just to wrap my head around, I guess would be the phrase. I mean, come on.
It's bad. That was so bad. There's no way getting around it. But looking at a decision that should have been booed to a guy who was booed. When you look at Daniel Jones last week he was being booed left from MetLife. Now you look at the guy who was on the down there playing against the Commanders. He looked better. He completed 16 of his 28 passes for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns. He looked more decisive. He stepped up in the pocket. His accuracy was much more better. And he he looked like the Daniel Jones we saw early in his career, the one that gave Giants fans a lot of hope and the belief, say, hey, we got our next Eli Manning, we got our next guy, the franchise quarterback there.
I completely
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Completely agree. I think this was the Jones that, that can kind of win you some games, right? He's not a superstar by no means. By no means is he a superstar, but he's efficient. Yet he was efficient on Sunday, and that's kind of all you can ask from him at this point. Like, how many chances are the Giants going to give Daniel Jones? I mean, we're in year 6, and he's the guy's still the starting quarterback for this team. But I think games like this, I mean, it kind of just goes to show that he's just kind of he lives to fight another week every time. Like, just when you think he's out, he kind of ropes you back in with an efficient performance like this. But again, I think, kind of speaking realistically here, even still, it wasn't that great. Like any other quarterback would have looked at this, like some of your top tier quarterbacks. I'm not even talking like superstars, but some of your top tier, middle tier quarterbacks would be looking at this and saying, all right, yeah, I got 178 yards. You got the 2 touchdowns. That's fine. But, this is still, I got to kind of be a little bit better than this. I mean, granted, 127 of these yards came from having a superstar wide receiver, which not every team obviously has, or at least who's going to be a superstar in Malik Neighbors, I think at least. Jones has to, he knows that he's not going to be in that top tier quarterback. So, if for this season, and I think this will be the last of Daniel Jones that we see in the Giants, if he can play like this, they can probably squeak out a couple wins here. But it'll only be a handful at the ceiling. That's just how bad everything else is with the Giants right now.
Which is kind of crazy. And you know what? I'm going to ask you this too. I was thinking about this too. At their points right now, we're 2 weeks in. Do you think that Jaden Daniels at this point right now is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones?
Oh, man. Oh, God. I would say God, he really impressed me the other day. I'll tell you that. Like, that much is clear. Like the Giants, didn't matter. They had a spy out there. It didn't matter what defense they were running. Like Jaden Daniels, he was and he didn't even have like a super crazy number of rushing yards, but on the ground, you just know it's so intimidating to have a quarterback like that can use his legs, and obviously Daniel Jones can do that too. But you just see that like unparalleled speed with Jaden Daniels that we saw in college at LSU. When he translates that to the NFL and he gets a little more comfortable, I don't think it's going to be long for him to be consistently a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. But I will say it's it's kind of a tough question right now because he's only 2 games in. But as of right now, I guess sure, yeah, he had better stats on Sunday. Why not? I'll go.
See, you know what the weird thing is? I think if you had Daniel Jones in Cliff Kingsbury's system, or even though I know Brian Dable is his quarterback whisperer, he had Josh Allen out there. I think if you got Daniel Jones in a system like that, he looked like Jaden Daniels. And once again, that goes back to Dable, and it goes up to the top with Shane, because I still think when Jones goes elsewhere and somebody else is still paying, the Giants are still paying off part of his deal and sending him a check, and he goes elsewhere eventually next year, I think with the right coaching staff, you could still salvage a lot with him. And to this point, and you made a good point as well too, like Jaden Daniels still has a way to go right now in terms of learning the system, because once teams start to get like, oh, we're getting a book on you, you like to run? And they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you the Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields treatment. Now try to stand in the pocket and pass. But I think eventually he's going to be good. Daniel Jones could do the same thing. Just give him a competent receiver. They should have gotten him a competent receiver the last couple of years instead of just going, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to get a new quarterback next year, but enjoy Malik Neighbors for this 1 year. Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. I appreciate that, guys. So for now, yeah, I agree with you. Jaden Daniels is that right now, but I think a lot of that is because I place on the Giants coaching staff, and I think a lot of it's their fault, because I think Daniel Jones can still be – he's not going to be top 10. He has the ability to be top 15 maybe in the right system, which the state of the NFL quarterback position is kind of sad to begin with. But yeah, we got that one there. Now, switching to the other side of the ball, the defense did. And it's another one I don't know where to go with, because this thing is there's so many questions after this game. This is bad. They allowed 425 yards to Jaden Daniels, who he ran effectively. He's able to scramble around on those first few drives. The Giants are also 23rd in the league in third down defense, and it showed at key parts of that game on Sunday. Ryan, what the heck is going on with the Giants defense? How do they fix that mess?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's the secondary, which was predictable. We knew that would be bad. But I would say half of their pass rushers are asleep at the wheel right now. Deonte Banks is your number one corner. I mean, Deonte Banks in any other team, he's a depth corner at best. I mean, this is a guy that there are plays that happen where I'm like, this guy's unplayable almost. Like it's that bad. Cordell Flott's not inspiring a lot of confidence. Pinnock's okay. Like he's had a decent season, so far early on. Tyler Nubin, I like what he's doing at the strong safety position too. And he's a rookie too, so he's just only going to grow into that. But you just look at a lot of these things that's kind of going wrong with this secondary right now. And it just makes you think, it just almost like kind of, makes you wonder, like, man, if the Giants did hit on some of these O-linemen in the draft, like I'm talking Evan Neal, Zudu, and even John Michael Schmitz, who's not exactly, the most, he hasn't really been lighting it on fire of late. If they hit on these linemen, though, and they kind of had them on affordable rookie deals, they could have kept guys in this secondary. Xavier McKinney, maybe they could have kept him. Maybe they could have kept Julian Love. I mean, but now you're trotting out this green unit that's just it's not working out, man. Some bright spots. Drew Phillips had a good game. He was kind of a dog out there. The linebackers are playing well too. I really liked the game from Micah McFadden the other day. I think Brian Burns is getting pressure. I think he's not getting enough credit that he really deserves. Although, at some point you want him to start putting the sack numbers up there. Thibodeau's having a terrible season. I completely walked back my prediction from 2 weeks ago, Chris, when I forget what the over-under was, but I'm slamming the under now. I don't think their sack number is going to come to fruition. Dexter Lawrence is a beast, but he's Dexter Lawrence, man. Of course he's a beast. Listen, what happened the other day with the fact that Washington was able to burn so much possession time against the Giants is a complete indictment on not especially the run. I would say especially the run defense, because that's just been terrible. They got the red zone defense down pat. They limited. Washington did not convert on a single red zone opportunity. Now, granted, they still made 6 or 7 field goals, so that didn't matter. But the fact that they burned so much clock the other day and were able to do it with ease against this Giants defense, it's an indictment on Shane Bowen, the new defense coordinator, and it should be just a kick for all these players to almost just look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we got to step this up, especially members of that secondary.
Yeah, it's funny, especially when you're a rookie. You think you blitz more, or you find ways to put more pressure. That should be the easiest time for your secondary to alleviate some of that stuff, and they weren't able to do it. I mean, you get Dexter Lawrence, like you mentioned, he is a beast, and he does well. He has a 25% pass rush win rate. Teams know that. People see that. They know the impact that he has, and so they're going to focus on that. The one thing you thought is, at least if you get Burns and you continue to get his pressure off the edge, and you got Lawrence from the outside, Thibodeau should be eating getting 1-on-1s and eating them up for lunch. We haven't seen that at all. And it comes in the question of, hey, you know what? Do you start looking at, well, they probably won't do it because they won't be in the playoff contention, but do you start looking at, okay, hey, maybe we should start looking at the future for finding his replacement in these upcoming drafts, because he hasn't really produced. It's been extremely bad. Like when I go back and look at some of the film, I'm just like, what do you like? You have to come in with a plan off the edges. And sometimes he rushes like he doesn't have a plan. He doesn't have a calendar or what have you. It's like, okay, I'm just going to beat your speed. This is not going back to Oregon. You're not in Oregon. You're not facing the Pac-12, which the fact that he able to garner the numbers he did in the Pac-12, a conference that barely played defense. Yeah, congrats. He did that. But yeah, NFL is way, way different. So I don't know what's going on with a lot of these pass rushers around the league right now, but it's not connecting. And Burns, he can get all the pressures and hurries, but until they convert into sacks, it's going to be tough to do that. I mean, do you think – I'll pose this one right now. Do you think we'll see a 2-sack performance within his next 3 games for Brian Burns?
Oh, man. You know what? Save that question for when we talk about this Browns matchup, because we can do that now.
You know what? Yeah, you know what? Let's go into that. Yeah. I'll ask you this. What do you think of the Brian Burns matchup, or do you think there's another favorable one that he could take advantage of?
I think this weekend will be the Brian Burns coming out party. Okay, he's had I think again that I think you look at the film, there are. Again, you got to just kind of finish the job there. It's a lot like the Giants defense in general. You just got to finish the dang job. And he's getting the pressure, but he's just not kind of finishing there. So once he I think once he gets a favorable matchup, not to say that Washington's O-line was any world beaters. They obviously weren't. But I think this week, with all the extra motivation, with all the other BS that he's had to kind of deal with, that all these players have now had to deal with because of, their own doing, like starting 0-2, and against 2 pretty green offensive tackles on Cleveland's O-line. I think Brian Burns can have a really, really good game this week. That's my matchup kind of to watch is just, and it's not even just Burns. It's just this pass rush in general. I think they're going to have kind of a tough time against the run a little bit. And that's just because I think up the middle, Dexter Lawrence is a beast, and there's no doubt about that. But Cleveland does have some pretty tremendous interior offensive linemen too. Really good to say the least. So if you get Burns and Kayvon finally coming off that edge and delivering, and finally giving Giants fans something to kind of smile about, like, hey, this is what our GM invested in this summer. This was kind of the big thing that was supposed to be really good, and we've gone silent, at least from a fan's perspective, in the first 2 weeks. Let's turn this ship around. I think that's what's going to happen this week. Now, again, I say this, and then 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about Is it time to trade Kayvon Thibodeau? Is it time? Is the Brian Burns trade a mistake? We say all that. But, for him part of the reason they made this big move for Burns was so that they could pretty much just not really, have him grow with this defense, right? Have this defensive front that can be just so, tough to beat in the next couple of years. He's only 26. He's off to a slow start here. This happens sometimes when players are traded. In all sports, any sport you can think of, it happens. But Brian Burns, game 3, you got to adjust, and especially with the tackles that you're going to be going up against. Come on, man! It's now's the time. You got to do it.
Yeah, and I like that because I think he can really do that, and I think it's about time. It takes a little while because to give you an idea, like Hassan Reddick when he first got to the Eagles, he didn't have a sack the first 2 weeks at all when he got there. Next thing you know, he finishes with 16. You're like, oh, something clicked. Okay, bam, he got that. I can definitely see it. I think the matchup I'm looking at, especially, I think that Cleveland Browns defense is going to be pissed. I really do. You give up 18 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the way they lost that game. Jim Schwartz, he's an accomplished defensive coordinator. Everybody's probably looking at this, well, the Browns, or what's going on? The Browns, they don't look as sharp as they used to, blah, 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 blah. I think they'll be ready. And I think they're going to be very aggressive. And if they're going to be aggressive, I look for a guy like Devin Singletary to get a lot of catches out the backfield because I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to have a lot of time to throw the ball, and he's going to be an outlet. And that's where I think you can really attack this Browns defense. Use a check down, use a screen game. Now, is he like the best receiving back in the league? No. But I think this is a week that he can really take advantage of it and pick up a lot of yards after the catch and use that to attack those edges. So he's a guy I'm really looking at right now to have a decent day. Will it help him win the game? Yeah, I don't think so. But at least he'll be able to move the ball down the field, and then I think he'll be decent in terms of that.
And listen, you say that too. I mean, run blocking wise, it hasn't been perfect, but I think they were a lot better in week 2 than they were in week 1. The Giants. This offensive line is doing well this year, man. They that's probably been like on offense. The exception being Malik Neighbors, obviously, who's been great through 2 games. Through 2 games, these are 2+ performances from this offensive line. Now, the right side kind of struggled last game. That's whatever, is what it is. But as a whole, pass protection and run blocking, especially in that second game, first game it didn't going at all. I think like you said, in Devin Singletary in the pass game, but also, I mean, maybe running wise too. It's maybe that's kind of the attack they go for against Cleveland. Who has, obviously is a tremendous pass rush. But this is going to be, I think, another matchup too. We can bring up a second one, is what this offensive line can do with a real matchup in going against Myles Garrett, who obviously is just amazing. Like that, the Andrew Thomas versus Myles Garrett matchup. Come on, man, that's must see TV. Except if you're a smart football fan and are not going to watch the Giants this week, which
ding, yep. so true. It's very crazy. Now, one guy we're going to be watching for and is Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, who every time we start to look at this contract now, guaranteed contract, it's like, what were the Browns thinking in terms of that? Because the best word to describe his season so far has been meh. He hasn't really lit up the world. He hasn't really lit up the world since he's been with the Browns. He's had the injuries. He had the allegations follow him, a new allegation, the way that he's playing right now on the field. It's just been dreck. And Watson looked mortal last week. And with the Giants defense coming off that Commanders performance, the way that Jaden Daniels play, do you think this Giants defense can be competitive and even pose a problem for him, or is this going to be more of the same we're going to be watching?
It's a tough one because he puts together a couple solid drives this past week. And obviously I'm watching, trying to go over and catch up. You know the drill, Chris. Like it's kind of sucks like being in the press box a little bit because like especially when you're covering a rebuilding team because it's like, oh man, there's so many better games on right now. Even that Jacksonville and Cleveland game is better than this. But you're sitting there and I'm looking over Deshaun a little bit today, and that's like you said, like it's just been meh so far, and probably I would even say meh to disastrous, right? Like between all the off the field stuff, one, and then two, you got the on field stuff. Which week one, it was like you're almost reading the tea leaves. Like is Cleveland, are they leaking this so that they can get out of this contract? And it was like, and what I mean by leaking it is the stuff about, okay, they can get out if they, if this one clause, if it's a criminal charge or whatever the clause may be, but all that stuff just seemingly comes out right after he has a terrible performance. And it's just, you're kind of reading the tea leaves on that. And then, the next game out, he has just a solid to okay to meh kind of performance. I think the Giants, again, it all comes down to that pass rush. What can they do against especially a very inexperienced left tackle in Cleveland? And then, just again, like a solid interior offensive line. Can they poke through and apply pressure on Watson? That'll be the key. That'll be the ultimate key for them because, I mean, you don't want them to start, because if they start going and really airing it out down the field, and Watson does kind of find his old self, even in spurts, then the Giants are the team that can make him look good, especially with this secondary. Like, and some of the weapons too. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is what he is, but he's at least a solid wide receiver, and can put up some decent numbers there, and Amari Cooper too. So I'm very curious to see what this Cleveland Browns pass attack can do against this Giants secondary. And yeah, we'll kind of have to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I actually think they have, and when it comes to at least total yards, I think the Giants will be competitive and actually lower that number from 425, which is not saying much. I know it's a pretty high number. I think it could be in the mid, like around 350, maybe lower, what have you. Because when you look at Deshaun Watson, when he first came into the league, what made him special was not only his ability to throw the ball, but his ability to escape, maneuver around, run, and what have you. And you just don't see that explosive running style from Watson anymore.
Not at all. Not at all.
I almost said a joke I shouldn't have said, but yeah.
There's no poise. There's no poise there either. It's completely like he's in his own head right now, and obviously there's a ton of stuff going on with him off the field. But I'm just looking right now from an on the field perspective. The product is not good. And the Browns are probably going to be kicking themselves for that decision. This is a franchise ruining decision. Not that the Browns were any good before, but my goodness, man.
When was the last time you've heard Browns and good decision used in a sentence? That's who knows? Daniel Jones starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns 2025. Who knows? Anyway, we're finally coming down to our overtime question. It's a question that generally try to make you guys think about it as well too after you listen to this podcast or you drive around, what have you. We'll try to mix it up, give you some different things around there. Some will be fun, some will be basic, some what have you. So we're gonna give you this overtime question coming in for this week. And Ryan, everyone in the NFC East right now is currently 1-1. The Giants are 0-3. They lost that one. When this week is over, do you think the Giants will have company in the basement at 1-2, or do you think they'll be alone at 0-3?
You know what? I'm just pulling up right here, so I'm kind of filibustering right now. I want to see who these teams are playing.
No problem.
So we got
Eagles have the Saints.
Oh man, okay. So the first I see is that the Cowboys play the Ravens. Already a tough matchup there, but both teams obviously going to be hell bent on trying to right the ship after pretty ugly week twos, and then the Ravens obviously 0-2. The Cowboys are losing that game. The Ravens are not starting this season 0-3. If they are, there's serious problems. The Eagles losing would kind of just be hilarious, and not because of like the meltdown and like the Belichick rumors that will like spurn from that, but because what the heck is going on? How is Carr all of a sudden this just like a is he prime Tom Brady? Like, what is going on with Derek Carr right now in the Saints? It's crazy. So no, I mean, I guess they won't. They will be 0-3, but they won't be alone. I guess they won't be alone in the basement. This will be like one of those classic NFC East years where it's just like, maybe some terrible teams at the bottom. Although I think Dallas and Philly, like I think they're good. Like, don't get me wrong. And then Washington has the Bengals. Oh my gosh, coming off a tough little ending there. Yeah. Every NFC East team is losing this week.
I'm going out on a limb here. It's one of those, like you mentioned, every year it just seems like it's really weird. And this season across the whole entire league is just weird.
Oh, what? Sam Darnold being an MVP quarterback is normal? Yeah.
Yeah, I put down $100 on that. Yeah, I knew he was going to do that. Yeah, I knew Nostradamus on that one too. Yeah, come on, everybody knew that. Yeah. But when you look at this, I just think the Giants win this game against the Browns. And I see the other three teams losing. And we're going to be headed for, all of a sudden, the NFC East is going to be talked like the NFC South of the last couple of years. There's no winning record. Like I see right now, there's no winning record in the division. These teams are bad. What's going on here? I think we have, after the end of this, I think we see all four teams at 1-2. I really believe it. And
that would be so.
Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? And we're thinking, and then who knows? We have a shot. We got this. Yeah, I don't think you do, but yeah, I think you have a shot. At least it'll be good for at least 1 week on talk radio up there and everything else, man. This is buckle up in terms of that. Now, Ryan, do you have anything that the people can look forward to coming up this week?
I have actually. It's pertinent kind of to what we're talking about tomorrow. I'm doing a thing about the teams that in the 17 game era, which is obviously just 2021. How many teams of the teams that have gone 0-2, how many of them have made the playoffs, and what have their average record been in this time? And let me tell you something, Chris. Unless C.J. Stroud or Joe Burrow is coming through and quarterbacking the Giants, then I don't think the Giants are going to make the playoffs this year.
Let's see. Yeah, Houston wouldn't do it. Nah, Cincinnati. Now they signed him to that contract, so I think they might do that now. Hey, Bryce Young's available. I'm just saying.
I know. I love that. I want that. I want the quarterback whisperer to come out, man.
Oh my goodness! It just reminds me. Like, I'm rooting for chaos. I just remember there's a Reddit college football CFB, and they have this weird thing called the chaos thing. It's like this team goes, yeah. I just want him to visit the NFC East this year. Just go. You know what? I'm here to help you out, Giants. What will you do to get you wins? And just give him Bryce Young. Let all the chaos happen in this division.
Yes,
that'll be great. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, as always, to do that. Make sure to check Ryan's work and also Daryl Slater's work out on NJ.com/Giants. Make sure as well, too, thank you for continuing to listen to the Talk is Cheap podcast. It's always great talking to you. So for Ryan, I'm Chris. Everybody have a good one. See ya.